Hello, today is Monday the 4th of November. The election is finally here, and to be honest, this is probably the biggest macro week of the year for markets. Not because the election isn't really important, because it seems to be, but 5 out of the G10 central banks meet this week to cut rates. The Fed and the Bank of England meet on Thursday to decide the next rate move. And so it really is quite a busy week. Markets don't normally care about politics. When you think about it, the last couple of years, markets shrugged off war in Ukraine with Russia. They have shrugged off another war in the Middle East. We have shrugged off all sorts of things and just kept plodding. But this really has been one of those weeks where the market will be a little bit distracted and things can get a little bit crazy. Because crypto has become such an election issue as well, quite a lot of the news is going to affect crypto as well. It absolutely blows my mind that America is a country of 350 million people, and yet because of the electoral system, which is so messed up, just like the UK, this election is going to be decided on 50,000 people in one state. And this is why there are 7 swing states which are kind of the most important. So news about those swing states are going to be key, and which way they go. So if they're pro-Trump, it'll be likely seen as a boost for crypto, and vice versa. So those swing states that we should be watching out the news for is Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. All of the others, news about, the sure thing states don't really matter so much. The biggest state with the most electoral votes is California. That is solidly Democrat and very unlikely to go any other way, just like Florida with 30 electoral votes, or Texas. They are all pretty solid, the Republican states. So it's those 7 that are going to matter. And probably the biggest and most important of those is Pennsylvania, because it has 19 electoral votes. And that's why we've heard about it so much in news, and that's why these candidates have spent so much time there. I have to say that I really don't trust Polymarket. We're going to hear a lot of polls and swings, and those are the key states where those polls matter. But I don't trust the news about Polymarket. I think it's too cheap for people to manipulate it. So just be a little bit wary of that. So that's where we are. This is like normal, any other kind of big news event. Market's going to be thin. If you try and trade it and jump in, you are quite likely to see some slippage. Thin liquidity, but you know what? I like markets to move, so I'm certainly going to be watching it too. For me, though, the biggest winner, I think, is if Trump wins. Doge. I think Doge and Elon Musk are a really interesting electoral trade. I mean, I know there are lots of pro-Trump meme coins, but Doge is the original meme coin, so that's going to be my favourite one, and we'll take a look at that. Let's start tonight, though, with Bitcoin, because here we are. This is a monthly chart of Bitcoin. And really since March, we have been in a pretty ugly sideways range now for 8 months. Started in March. In fact, if we draw the range of this very first monthly candle, you can see everything. We have not closed outside of this range since this started. Now, I have a friend who wouldn't draw it like this. He would always say this one is the controlling inside bar, and he would draw it around this one, which makes it a bit lower. But either way you look at it, one of the interesting levels that I've been watching today is this high from November 2021. And if we go down to the daily here in Bitcoin, you can see, in fact, if we go down to the hourly, this red hash line, we can see that this level from 2021 has been really interesting support and resistance, and a little bit of a fight over it, and here we are underneath it again, looking lower on the hourly on a few time frames. Now, I had always expected a little bit of a shakeout pullback around this election, but when you look at it big picture on that monthly or even on a weekly chart, you cannot argue that this is not bullish consolidation sideways in a really strong uptrend. And these choppy overlapping waves inside of each other are exactly that. They are bullish consolidation in an uptrend, and it's not a reversal yet. And unless we start losing some of these weekly moving averages, I wouldn't even call it a shorter term downtrend. It's just, we need to be patient while this chop works out. Somebody posted a really interesting chart today, Ricky XBT, of what have happened in previous elections. So this was the 2016 election, really lovely rally afterwards. This was the 2020 election. I have to say this one might be a little bit different because this is the first one where crypto is an issue. But, and really because this is the first one, I think, since kind of Bush v. Gore, where it's been really tight into, you know, really hard to determine who's going to win. But this is still bullish consolidation post-halving, and we're still going higher when this is over, unless this chart changes a lot. And at the moment, I don't really see any signs of that. And if we think about it, you know, if Kamala gets in, she really hasn't discussed crypto. So what are we going to see? You know, more of the same? Was this whole rally, you know, just because we thought Trump was going to get elected? No, because we really had no idea. You know, when it was Trump and Biden, it was gruesome. You kind of didn't really want either one. We could argue that lately the short-term rally has been for Trump, but I have to say that I think this is too close to call. So trade very carefully, be very careful with liquidity, and look out for great opportunities. I think there are some charts that are looking kind of really interesting. And yeah, my favorite trade for the election is still Doge, so we will talk about Doge. But let's talk about what ETH is doing, because ETH is really underperforming. And I have to say quite a lot of the older school charts, the OG kind of altcoins, big altcoins, are looking a little bit like this. You know, this looks very bear flaggy or bear pennant, doesn't it? If we look at this on a weekly, we've got pretty good support from the weekly 200 moving average, which was support in 2022, 2023, and here we are 2024. In fact, it's been support since August. I think if we were to lose that, we would see another leg lower, and the next fib lower takes us down to 1,800. But for now, you know, this, just like Bitcoin, is a really nasty tight range. My issue with it is that it's at the lows, you know, of the last year, whereas Bitcoin is at the highs of the last year, or you know, was at least at the start of the week. So I'm still looking for ETH to bottom, but I don't really see a trade here in this one. And I think it's going to be back to being a follow-on trade. Same in Solana. Let's start in Solana though, rather than looking at, let's look at Solana against the dollar, because this is really very similar to Bitcoin. Really lovely 5-wave rally from the lows in 2022, made a high in March, just like Bitcoin, and we could argue that this is still one big bullish flag. In fact, we could argue against the dollar that perhaps it's holding up a little bit better than Bitcoin, but we haven't really kind of got close to testing these highs. So for me, this is still bullish consolidation, and I think that there is possibility, you know, that we could find some support here if everything turns around. Here in the middle, if we look through the middle of this sideways range, we've got a pretty interesting support and resistance level. Every time we got up to it here in the middle around 159, 160 here, it would be quite cool if this previous resistance became support. We could turn higher from here, so this would be just a 3-wave correction, and this is the start of a new swing higher. But I think if we lose this key support and resistance level through the middle, there is the risk that we do a bigger move lower here. And here's the reason why. If I measure from the high that we made in 2021 to this low, and I look at fib patterns, we reversed at a 786 fib level. For me, when you reverse at a 786 fib, you normally look for make 3 waves, and the 38.2 is your first target, which puts us back to here, which we never quite tagged, and I always got a little bit annoyed that we didn't quite tag. I would have probably bought a lot more Solana if we had, because I've been kind of waiting for this level. So I think if things do get a little bit leery, and I have to say we're going to need a lot of patience this week. This is not like elections in the UK where you wake up the next morning and you know who the winner is. They could take weeks to count these votes and have a recount and a legal challenge and so on and so on and so on. In fact, Pennsylvania, which is one of the biggest swing state, said that it may take 2 weeks to count the votes there. So this idea that we're going to know pretty quickly, I don't think is likely, I have to say. And I think we may need a little bit of patience. Let's see how we go. So for me, I think if we fall a little bit lower, I'm going to get out of Solana and wait, and I am definitely sitting ready to buy at 105 in this one. That would mean wave 1, wave 2, and the big one next in wave 3 in Solana. I haven't quite drawn this fib right, but the level is right. There we go. It's 104.26. Now, if you don't look at the charts every day, you can put a little alarm at this level, and if it ever comes back there, you can take a look and see if you like it. But yeah, that's what I'm looking for in Solana. Now I've got a whole bunch of requests tonight. I'm going to do Doge first, which is my favorite chart, favorite election chart. Let's take a look at this on the monthly. Big picture and where we are. Now, the first time we rallied from the 2022 lows in this one, we got rejected at the 236 fib. Here we are after a very nice 3-wave pullback though from the high in March of this year, just like when Bitcoin made a high. Very nice 3 waves and turning higher again. So rather than look at these big fibs, I'm going to keep that as our key resistance that we need to get above. If we get above it, I think we go to 0.32 and 0.4 pretty quickly in Doge. That would be 50% of this drop. Very kind of normal first targets. But short term, because we've done this shorter ABC here, I'm going to go down to the weekly and take a look at where we are. And we're going to ride this level to level to level and buy pullbacks. This is what I've been doing. If we look at it on the daily, you probably go, oh, are those fibs working? Remember, when I draw them, the 236 fib for me is my touchstone. If there was a reaction at that level, I kind of lean on it and look for it for all the others levels. And we can see from this high to this low, this 236 fib, the first time we got to it, we had a really nice reversal at it. Deep 786 fib, and it was support and resistance. We're above it now. The 38.2 was messy. We got above this 50%. Looks like we're holding above it. We've reversed actually at a 61.8. This is kind of quite important. So this is a trending market. Really, we can say this from the lows on the 5th of August. This is still trending higher. It's turned up higher very nicely today. If we look at this on the short term, every time Trump gets a pretty nice poll, so he had a little bit of a setback at the weekend, which was this, and here we are going up again. We can say that this little short-term parallel channel that we were in on the hourly, I think that we've kind of broken out of this now, or we're trying to. And if we get above it, buying pullbacks, I'm going to look for this one to keep going higher. To retest 0.17 and then 0.19. If we fall lower here, or if I'm wrong and it doesn't pull back but keeps going lower, back underneath 0.154 again, remember 50% very often pivot levels. I think we might see one more pullback lower in this golden ratio zone, back to the 4-hour 200 and back down to 0.13. But yeah, that's how I'm swing trading Doge. I'm buying pullbacks, looking to build a position because that's my Trump win bet, if you like. Okay, let's take a look at some of these requests. First one is what's going on with Goat or Goatseus. Is it really AI? I don't know if it's really AI. But we'll take a look at where it is, and some of these are not looking so happy. Let me find Goat. Here it is. Now, this is another one. I have to say, when I see a chart like this, especially of a new meme coin, and some of them get listed on different exchanges at different times, so I'm pretty reluctant to use fib retrace levels from the low because they won't all be the same depending on which exchange you're trading it on and what you're looking at. So I tend to just draw this as a channel. So if I draw this as a parallel channel up here, which I've done, look, I've connected these two highs. Here we are within the channel. And I'm going to connect it from this lowest low here. And here we are touching it. I'm looking to see, this looks pretty nice here. Are we going to head up from the bottom of this channel in Goatseus? If we are, instead of putting my fibs on here, I'm going to put my fibs on from this high to this low. Here we are a little bit sideways at this 236 fib, but so that case, it's not so clear. I'm going to say, right, these highs are what we need to take out to change the trend, and this 4-hour 50 kind of here. So a little head and shoulders pattern here would be a pretty, if we can turn higher, that would be a pretty bullish setup. First target would be top of this channel that we're in, and breaking out from the channel. That's the next swing higher. That's what I'm looking for in Goatseus. So relative to this, really, look, when we were trending, we made very nice swings, shallow pullbacks, didn't bleed into the previous wave, kept going. This was choppy and overlapping and corrective. And so I still like this one. If we look at it from this most recent swing rather than from this random low, again, just because of how they chart, we could say, well, this is a 61.8 fib retrace, and we've got a little stuck here at the 50%, then the 38.2, and that's pretty cool, because then our second target would be 0.72. So 0.62, 0.72, if we can hold above 0.534 in Goatseus Maximus. If we can't, and we roll over here, then we're still in this little declining wedge, still going lower, not ready to break out yet, kind of looking like this. I have to say, this is quite a good lesson when you see a declining wedge or any chart that's consolidating and getting into a kind of tighter and tighter range, which this is. When you draw it as a wedge like this, which we could do here like this, kind of, if you draw them, you know, tightening up, you kind of look to where was the point that they would meet, or, you know, can't fit anymore. And you kind of need to see it break out kind of 2/3 of a long, which would be 2/3 of it. Because markets that tend to trade all the way into the apex kind of lose their predictive power. So if we were to keep going all the way down here, I wouldn't like this so much as this declining wedge. But if we could break out here, that I think would be a very nice long. So again, that's what I am looking for in Goatseus, and yeah, I still like the chart on this one. Maybe it's just an AI thing, maybe it's not. I don't know. I like the chart. That's what I'm looking at. A request to take another look at Popcat, which is having a bit of a bigger pullback. Now, when in a trending market, for example, here or here, very often, you know, this is a daily chart. If you lose the 20 moving average, the daily 50 moving average is like your backstop. So where we've pulled back to here is like the backstop, where we would like to see this hold as support. It's also pulled back to this previous swing low. So in terms of trend, this is a pretty, you know, this has been a pretty nasty retrace. This is a really good place to bounce. One of the reasons I don't like it, I have to say, is this doesn't look like a very nice three-wave pullback here. It looks kind of like it's dropped like a rock in one line. Even if I go lower, it doesn't look. The B leg in the middle, I kind of want to see three legs in it, and this one it doesn't. So I would expect this to bounce here, but I'm not sure that this correction is complete with that in Popcat. If I go all the way from this low to high here, yeah, fib retrace levels aren't helping with this swing. If we go from this most recent swing, maybe does it help? 38.2, maybe. I don't think we should rely on fib levels with this one, but I do think that this is a level where we may attempt a bit of a bounce. So short term, if we were to look at this on an hourly or a 4-hourly, we could say that this is a little bit of maybe a double bottom. And so if we broke the highs in the middle and got back above these moving averages, that would be a signal that we are on our way up again. But this level here previous swing high would be a bit of tough resistance, 139. So we may go sideways a little bit here, but back above 139, I think Popcat is back on the way higher again. And if we lose this daily 50 moving average and it becomes resistance, I think watch out, we could end up with a bit of a bigger correction, and we could end up all the way back to this daily 200, which would not be so much fun in this one. So if you wanted to maybe sell a little bit, a bounce here back to this sideways range or back up to 1.4 would be a good opportunity for that. Let's take a look at Well, which, where's it gone? Here we go, Moonwell. Well, this is quite an interesting chart because it's my favorite reversal setup. I'll talk about why. So if I measure the fibs from this low in October to the high that we made here on the last day, second to last day of October, we have retraced to the 50% retrace, which is always a very common place to pull back to. It's also this swing high, so there's some support and resistance here, and it's this daily 20 moving average. And if we go down a time frame, you can see that we've also done it in very nice three waves, and if I measure these three waves, they are equal. So here's our first swing, here's our second swing to this 50%. So a equal measured move, pull back to the 50% retrace level is my favorite reversal setup. And here we are, we've bounced very nicely off the lows. I don't know if we're going to double bottom and retest them, or if we're going to turn higher from here. I've been watching this on the Heikin-Ashi, and I kind of like the 4-hour Heikin-Ashi when this sets up. So it's not quite ready to go. I'd like to see it back above the middle here, and either a double bottom or a bottoming pattern. But certainly from the high that we made last week, a week ago, last Wednesday, this for me is my ideal pullback. So I'm looking to see if this bottoms and has another go higher from here. And because this is a 50%, if this is just a bounce and it's not going to go to new highs, the first place it's likely to target is this 50% going the other way. Mean reverting markets tend to keep mean reverting. So the bounce from the 50% here is likely to tag 0.091. And we may then see, quite often you'll do 50% up, and then you'll do 50% back, and then it'll coil up until you break out of that pattern. But from here, this next pullback, I am looking for at least another leg higher to 0.091 in Moonwell, and see if we can break out from there and call it a bottom. Okay, next request tonight was Aave. Let's take a look at Aave on the weekly, because it's a little bit sad because this got reversed here. At the weekly 200 moving average, I was looking for this to go higher. Here we are tonight sitting on this weekly 20 moving average, which potentially could be pretty interesting support. I've drawn this as a channel, but I really don't have enough data on the bottom to keep it as a channel, so I'm going to leave it for now. And we could say, is this a three-wave corrective pattern? Is this second swing like 61.8 of the first one? Or are we kind of quite where we need to be? It doesn't look like it, does it? It looks like this kind of important support has gone at 137. So if I was stalking this one to get back in it, I wouldn't like this unless we got back above that 137 level. And I think we've got further to fall, unfortunately, to 119 and back towards the daily 200 moving average. Unfortunately, it's not set up yet, or signs of bottoming, and likely further to fall. This swing low here, 119, and these highs, there's a really nice support and resistance around there. And I think, unfortunately, Aave looks set to continue lower. So next one was Whiff, dog with hat, and is this setting up like Doge? This is really interesting, this chart, because this has done a very nice three-wave correction. I've drawn my fibs from this high to low. We had a textbook lovely reaction here at this 236 fib. It was then support when we got above it, and here we are. back testing this support again. We didn't break out of this channel, unfortunately, so I'm going to bin that and take it away. But here's our key support. Not only that, right, but from, let's tidy up here, from this high to low, this was a 50% move, right, from this high to low. So the first support should be 50% going the other way, right? Mean reverting markets tend to keep mean reverting. Here we are at the 50% level. I've drawn this a little bit wrong. So ideally, 2.02 is 2.022 is the level where I would like to see it try and make a bottom here on lower time frames. Moving averages, hourly moving averages or something like this, double bottom. So I'm watching this pretty closely here in WIF, because if we can double bottom here, we take out these highs in the middle, we will then be above our hourly moving averages. We'll be challenging the 4 hour 20 and likely go at a bigger bounce in WIF. So pretty key support level to be watching in WIF to see if we can get that bullish reversal. And remember, because we've been doing this 50% thing, first target on the bounce long will be 50% from this high to low, which would be 2.46. We might have a little bit of a pullback there, and above 2.46, I'm looking for it to see if we can get to the top of the channel, if we can break out from these 50% retraces. So pretty key, interesting support here in WIF. Let's see if it can bounce and follow Doge higher. Okay, my other favourite trade. I really shouldn't keep looking at my old favourite trades, but Tau, which is quite a wild one, is having a bigger pullback than I was expecting. So yeah, I'm all out of that, waiting for that to bottom. Let's talk about where that might be though, because this is starting to look like a little bit of a higher low. So from, you can see here, take everything off, I was looking for this to be our first 5 waves higher, 3-wave correction, and off on our way to new highs. This is quite a sharp pullback. Now we could argue that within this, that here on the daily, that this quite possibly is 5 waves up when we are trending higher. We are then just looking for a big pullback, and back to the daily 200 moving average would be a really good place to look for it. If we look at what the fib pattern is here, so from this high to this low, where did we reverse? At the 786. If you do that, normally your first target is a 38.2. We're not quite there yet. It's at 399, and sometimes you go a little bit lower to the 236 fib. And the reason when you do that, it's because you're making a swing that's 61.8 of this first swing. So if I measure, let me show you what I mean. If I measure from this high to this low, that's down here at 299, 309, between 299 and 309. So that's where, if we continue lower and we don't bounce from this 200 moving average, that's where I'm going to be stalking next swing entry in Tau, Bittensor, everything. Like very, very little is rallying today. Everything is having a little bit of a pullback, but there are a few gems out there that I think could do well, and those are the ones that I'm watching. Let me know if there's anything you like, and I'll chart it for you.